that is down now. The cost for them now will be $36 a year, down from 48. So I don't see any reason why not to reduce that while we can. That's it on that rate. Just the $20. Just the removing the $40 and making it 20. Removing the $4 charge and making it 3. That's it on the residential. C1.
Any group of questions about that before it gets too far? Okay.
C1 is the large commercial industrial. There's only 17 customers on that rate anyway. I looked at that rate. I didn't see any change that need to be made for Part 1 or Part 2. There's only one customer on Part 2, which is the paper mill. He's the only one with a demand big enough to justify that rate. So there's no changes made to C1. C3. You probably remember a year and a half ago when I did the rate change, and we added a demand charge to C3, but we dropped the transition charge to kind of balance it out. At the time, we split C3 into a Part 1 and Part 2. The Part 1 C3 was basically anybody who had a service single phase or 3-phase for a use other than residential that didn't have a demand meter, which is basically a house meter. The house meters we use that are automatically read, we use a lot of those for our C3 customers, whether it's a business or even a second meter on a garage or something like that. And then you had Part 2. Part 2 were the people which had the demand meters installed already, so it kind of took some of the work out of it. The reason this is not going to work for me long term is because every month I get a sales summary from the staff accountant based by. Yes, yeah, I'll explain. I'll get there. The reason this is going to work is I do the accountant does a sales summary for me monthly, so I know the first of each month basically how we did the month before. There's no way to, because of the billing system, there's no way to look at all the C3 data over a month, a day, a week, or a year and separate the Part 1 from the Part 2. That was kind of an oversight, I guess, on my part. The simple solution is to create a C4 rate, and just what I'm doing is I'm taking Part 2 of C3 and I'm just making it Part 4. When I do that, we're going to have a new rate, and I think that'll be like a 7th rate. No one's rates are changing beyond the customer charge reduction, which I'll get to in a second. So you can see if you flip to the next page, you've got C4. Again, nothing has changed except the conditions by which you can be on there. When I look through, the objective of this rate change back a year and a half ago was to keep everyone on rate 3, and that includes M3 as well. The town has many accounts on an M3 rate. The objective was to keep everybody as close to.
Excuse me, Bev, can you conduct your meeting either before the meeting or after the meeting?
I'm sorry, I just asked him something, that's all. Excuse me.
All right. So the objective before was to have all the rate 3 customers, the C3s and the M3s, pay around 13 cents. Because based on the rate study I'd done with them, that seemed like, according to them, that was where we wanted to be based on the cost of service. The easiest thing to do here is separate these two is have a small commercial and industrial, a C3, and then a medium commercial industrial, like a C4. Somebody who either runs a business or doesn't run a business, maybe has a little shop in the garage, and for whatever reason they want a second meter. Every time the second meter goes on that residential property, it just becomes a C3. That just covers us in the future in case they do start, like John's wood cutting. All of a sudden it's a commercial account. That would be a perfect example of a small commercial. A medium commercial covers quite a bit of people. That would be like the package stores, which there's a couple. People getting over 15, 20, 25 kilowatts of demand, things like that. So I find I can make all these changes as far as a billing system pretty easily already. I think a good cutoff point for small commercial is 2,000 kilowatt hours a month. I mean, unless you're a residential customer with all electric heat in the winter, you're not gonna hit 2,000 kilowatt hours, or maybe having a pool or central air in the summer, which we don't see too much of here. I think a good cutoff point for the small would be anyone from 0 to 2,000, and then the next logical group would be from 2,000 to 10,000 kilowatt hours a month. The reason I picked 10,000 is because the minimum requirement to get on rate 1, which is our large rate, is to achieve 10,000. And in the past few years, because of customers' usage being down, several people have been moved off rate 1 onto rate 3. You know, so they're not paying $6 for a demand, because that's not what it costs us anymore to provide them that. But beyond the red language about eligibility, or I should say availability, you know, 0 to 2,000 for rate 3, 2001 to 10,000 kilowatts a month for rate 4. The only other change is, again, the same thing with the customer charge. It doesn't really cost us any more to read a residential meter than it does for some of these commercial meters beyond, you know, maybe the meter reader taking a 30-foot walk, you know. So, but again, all the same reasons I gave before about the office expenses being down, it literally just taking less time to bill people now apply here, which is why I would suggest taking the C3 rate, which was also $4 a month, drop that to 3. The C4 rate was actually $8 a month. Now, the reason it was been $8 for about a year and a half was to recover some of our metering costs. We spent probably, I'm guessing, $12,000 to $13,000 since 2006, kind of slowly getting ready for this movement toward, you know, a demand rate, because, you know, over the years, capacity charges are our biggest expense now, where energy used to be. Now it's capacity, which is why we need to know what these people are achieving for demand. Obviously, the bulk of that metering cost has been recovered. So the customer charge here is really, you could really cut it in half. You could say $3 for the billing end of it, and the other $3 would be to recoup the rest of the C4? Yes, C4. So $3 for the regular customer charge to recover just the billing end of it, and the other $3 would be probably another year of charging them $3 is going to wipe out our any metering costs, any kind of development costs, and then I would say I see all these rates just being the same number someday. Once we get you know, we don't have every meter automatically read. When we do, when the legislature and really the federal government decides what should happen with metering, what's going to happen, you know, it's probably going to be a mandate. We're not going to have much of a choice. You know, that's when, you know, whether that's 2, 3, 4, 10 years down the road, you know, I see us eventually changing every meter to something that's, you know, compliant and standard. At that point, we really look at the customer charge and say, you know, is it even do we even need it at all? And if we do, does it need to, you know, when you get the customer charge down to, you know, like $1.50, you know, at some point you will eventually just wipe it away, you know. But it's always going to cost us something to build people, I guess, is my point. So those are my suggestions for the changes on the Schedule C3 and the Schedule C4. So next one, yeah. Next one's my favorite, the T3 rate, time of use rate for commercial industrial. There's 5 customers on this. PLM did a rate remodel design in 2008, and the guy who did it had attended a few board meetings, I remember, and he was modeling this, you know, commercial industrial time of use rate that we were trying to develop after an N-Star rate that he had just developed for, you know, for N-Star. We weren't that crazy about the numbers coming back, because we just Zynetics is the customer on this rate. They use arc furnaces. They work with specialty materials. They have an odd cycle, but when they can, they try and remain off peak, you know, because off peak cost is, you know, lower. The number in red used to be $24 per month for a customer charge, and when I had taken over for Sean, I had approached Mayhew at PLM to kind of ask if he could pick that charge apart for me. The $24 a month just seemed really, really too high. So I don't know how we justified that. When I did the rate change a year and a half ago, I immediately cut it to 12 when I realized that what he had done was assume that we were going to have hundreds of customers on this rate that were going to need a brand new meter right off the bat, where we only have 5. I mean, I can name them. You know, we've got the animal control, the dog place, dog rescue place. We got Zynetics. I think we have 2 water department accounts, and no, I can't remember the other 2. That's okay. But again, we don't have hundreds of these customers. He based this model around this rate was gonna be so good that people were gonna be drawn to it and actually approach the department and say, gee, I'd really like to be replaced on this rate because I can operate off-peak and save a fortune. Wasn't the case at all. Why am I dropping it down to 6? Again, the same reason as the C4, $3 a month to send these people the bill, do all the processing. The other $3 a month is I anticipate us having to change these meters someday eventually, but I just want that, I want that $3, that additional $3 for, I'd like to keep it at $6 just to be safe. I don't want to have to incur all of a sudden a big cost. I mean, just to change one of the meters at Zynetics is almost $975, because it's, the time of use meters are a whole different ballgame. The program is nightmarish to do. Usually what we do now is have the program just done at the factory, because there's so, there's holidays that fall on the same day, then there's ones that don't, there's daylight savings time, and then there's times of day, before 8 AM it's cheaper, after 8 AM it's more, and then at 9 PM it reverts. That's what time use is basically.
Can you check those meters in-house? Those time of rate meters?
For accuracy?
Yeah.
The Zynetics ones we can. The single phase ones we can.
What the equipment we have?
Yeah, we have a single phase one at that little PRV hut on Dudley Road
Yeah.
for the water department, and we have a single phase one at the animal control. Yeah, we can test those for accuracy. But that meter with animal control, I think that's only, I don't even think that's 5 years old. I mean, when we buy all those meters, they come with test results, and we usually plan on those test results being good for at least 10 years before we go to a regular round of just testing all meters, getting on a meter test cycle. The 3-phase meters we buy come with test results from the factory. We actually don't have equipment here to test 3-phase meters out of the box. I've never really seen a need for it. We're changing a meter at a location. The customer typically has a demand of, say, 300 kilowatts, and maybe he uses 500,000 kilowatt hours a month. Well, if we put the new meter in and his demand comes in at 306, and he's using 497,000 kilowatt hours, well, it's just, we're good, so.
We also have the power recorder that measures energy too, so when you really question it, you could verify it with that too.
Yeah, so I think that's my only change for that. I don't think there's anything. Oh, yeah, the A2 rate is the last rate. Nobody is on this rate. This rate mystifies me. We came up with it with good intentions. At the time there was a lot going on. We had the animal control place being built. The heat storage system in there has saved a lot of money in the heating, because it charges those refractive bricks off peak, and then during at 8 o'clock the charging kicks off, and the only thing you've got is a couple of quarter horsepower motors below it just blowing the hot air out. Works out pretty well. We've got 3 of them at Willow Street. We have one of them at the Dudley hut. We actually have one at Sawyer Street too.
Maple Street too.
Maple Street, yeah. They work quite well. When this rate was developed, it's not for anyone. A lot of municipals and IOUs have a residential time use rate that the customer, the only requirement for the customer to be on is typically you have to use a certain amount. You have to use a lot. That lot is usually $2,000 a month. Average. I mean, I've seen there's houses in town that will use 5,000-6,000 kilowatt hours in just a single month in January and February if they do have electric heat. So the average throughout the year ends up being over 2,000. They might be eligible for something like that. But this rate is specifically designed for somebody who wants to take their entire heating system out of their house, whether it's conventional electric heat, oil heat, whatever they have, propane, and put this in and then get on the rate. So it just no one is on it. I see myself looking at this rate in the next couple of years, and maybe there's a chance. We'll probably do a rate study this year anyway, because it's been 5 years since we've had an official, licensed rate study done. 2013 is probably the time to do it. When we do that, might be decision time on what do we do with this rate. Do we just change it to include anyone who is eligible, who would otherwise be eligible under rate A, maybe. Which is why I think I called it A1, because this conventionally got called A2. Maybe in the next year's time we work out a rate where we can save customers money if they try and do things later on. I don't do a lot after 9 o'clock at my house personally, beyond like, you know, when watching TV, maybe some laundry, but I don't know how much it would really save people. And then the problem is the on-peak cost would obviously be much more than the off-peak cost. But right now, when I started here, the difference between on-peak and off-peak cost was almost 6 cents on the market. Now it's more like 1.8, right? So as a